Danny Segura for MMA Junkie. I'm here with former UFC strawweight champion Carla Esparza. Carla, first of all, how are you? I know you recently came back from a little trip. How's it going and how you been?
Yeah, I just came back from Napa, did a little bit of wine tasting while my fiance was having a medical conference. So yeah, everything's been great.
Nice. So of course I wanted to have you on to talk about what's going on in the strawweight division. Obviously, a title defense by Rose Namajunas that we saw at UFC 268. I talked to you about maybe 3 weeks ago, but obviously things have changed. We were waiting on this result as it was going to determine a lot. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about UFC 268 co-main event. Rose Namajunas defends her strawweight title in a rematch against Zhang Weili. First of all, it was a split decision. How did you score the fight? How did you see it? Because a lot of people thought Zhang won. Some people thought that Rose won. Some people even had it as a draw. So how did you score the bout?
I definitely gave the fight to Rose. I thought she did more. I think she had a great performance, and I think she kind of solidified that she is the undisputed champion. I think a lot of people had second guesses when Rose and Weili fought the first time, and I heard some people, oh, it was a fluke and this and that, but I think Rose really proved herself that she is the better fighter.
Yeah. I think you were on with your prediction. You said you expected her to win, but much closer than the first time out. So I think you were dead on that one. So I'm guessing, the result didn't surprise you at all, right? This is exactly what you expected from Rose.
Yeah, this is exactly what I expected and what I hoped for. So I'm super happy for her to have that win. And, hopefully it means an awesome rematch for us in the near future.
Right. And that's what everybody has been talking about after the event. You said that, look, if Zhang wins, obviously it can complicate things because then maybe the UFC might be inclined to do a trilogy bout, but obviously that's not the case anymore. She's now 0-2 against Rose. Do you feel like you're the clear-cut number one contender at 115 pounds?
100%. I think that I'm the only next fight that really makes sense. If you look at anyone in the top five, she's either beat them or I have recent wins. So I think the fight between Rose and I is really the next logical step.
Yeah. And after the event at the post-fight presser, my colleague John Morgan asked Dana White about okay, what's next? Is Carla Esparza next in line? And he was hesitant to sort of throw out a name there and said there was sort of options. Are you kind of surprised that there's such a hesitancy from the UFC to sort of label you as the next in line? Because it seems pretty obvious just looking at the rankings and, I'm being completely unbiased here, but Weili is at number one, right? She just lost. You have yourself at number two, number three, Marina Rodriguez, who you defeated recently, not in your last fight. Yan Xiaonan at number four, who you defeated in your last fight. It just seems that there are really no other options but yourself.
I mean, honestly, that's how I feel, that there's really not a lot of other options. I'd love to hear what the UFC or Dana would come for as the next option that they're kind of talking about. But I mean, I personally, even as a fan of the division in this sport, I couldn't really think of any other fight that really makes sense. So, we'll see what they come up with. But in all actuality, I think Rose and I are the fight that is a fight that makes sense. I think it's a fight that she wants. It's a fight that I want. So hopefully it happens.
Yeah, and I guess what's your degree of confidence that this is next for you? Because as you said, Rose said she's down to fight you. She actually wants that rematch. She wants to avenge the loss. You obviously want it. You want to fight for the belt and gain your belt back. And also the fans just seem to be on board with it. So what's your degree of confidence that this is going to go down? Is it this is next in line, or do you feel like there could be maybe a surprise thrown your way?
I mean, you never know with the UFC. They can kind of always throw out, whatever. But in all actuality, like I said, this is the only fight that makes sense. I think I made a statement in my last fight. I think Rose wants a fight. She thinks in her mind at this current time that this is the toughest fight for her. She wants to avenge her loss. And there's nothing but respect between us. But I don't think that's going to stop her from trying to take my head off and get that win.
Yeah. And let's sort of circle back to Rose's performance. Something that I thought was very interesting was, the first 3 rounds were very, very close. And a lot of it was because of Zhang Weili's improved wrestling. She was able to get Rose down and And Rose probably had a slight edge on the striking, but with the takedowns, that's why it kind of made the rounds very competitive. When you were watching the fight, were you thinking like, oh, okay, like, this is all me, because you're probably the best wrestler at 115 pounds today.
Yeah, and there's also the element of surprise. That may have been a game plan that wasn't expected to, and maybe that's why I think Rose may have been a little caught off guard. But at the end of the day, like, Rose has great jujitsu, and I think she was able to just to get on top and get position. And Weili, I think her wrestling has been underrated actually over the years, because I've watched back fights with her, like, I did a little bit of studying in the past, and I know she's Jessica Aguilar. She has quite a few takedowns of I think Brianna. Like, she has some really nice like body locks and trips. Like, I just think her wrestling is underrated and underestimated. And yeah, I don't think it's like that she's completely like just recently been working. I think it's some tools
Yeah.
she's had for a while.
What did you think of Rose wrestling? She got a nice takedown in the fifth, right, and controlled the action.
Yeah, for sure. No, I was impressed by Rose's wrestling, and looking at the stats at the beginning of the fight, seeing that she has, actually a very high takedown accuracy, which makes sense. She has great grappling, so great performance.
Yeah. Do you feel like stylistically you're maybe one of the worst matchups for Rose in the division?
Stylistically, it's hard to say. I think when we fought the first time, I was, not a bad matchup for Rose, but it's been 7 years. So, a lot of her fights have been contended on the feet, but that's not to say that she doesn't, hasn't been working a lot of things in the back too. So, I'm excited to see, like, after all these years, like, what improvements have come. I think it's going to be a much different fight.
Yeah, certainly. And what would it mean to regain your belt? Because as we talked about in our prior interview, like a few weeks back, like you mentioned how you had some downs in your career, but you came back for them, and now you're on a crazy fight winning streak and looking very good. What would it mean after all these years to regain the title once again and become UFC champion?
Oh my gosh, to get that title back, I think would mean so much. For me on a personal level, just for personal growth, and even just to the public, and to everyone who's had a hard time, and had success, and then fallen from grace, and hit a low. And it to me would really show that you can kind of fight back from anything. May not be today, may not be tomorrow, but you can get better, you can work at it, and you can fight your way back to the top.
Yeah, certainly. And for this fight with Rose, this potential fight that obviously that you want, the fans want, and as well as the champion. Rose said after the event, like, look, I'm pretty healthy. Yes, it was a grueling fight, but she was at the post fight press conference. She didn't need to go to the hospital or anything like that. It seems she's in health. She's okay. Just obviously regular bumps and bruises from the fight. But ideally, when would you like this fight to happen? Obviously, a lot in play, but what would be an ideal time for you to get in the cage?
I mean, in a perfect world, I'd love to fight, sometime early next year, February, February, March, I think would be a great time to kind of give Rose that time to, that she deserves, well deserved, to recover and rest up. And, I think we both want to kind of like get to work.
Yeah. And I guess fans might not know, but like, what's the next step for you? Do you just wait for the UFC call? Are you bugging Brian Butler like, hey, reach out? What's going on? What does the next few weeks look like for you after now that we know that Rose is champion?
Well, as much as I think it's the logical next step, and it's like kind of a no-brainer, I'm definitely going to have more conversation with my manager. I wasn't jumping to the conversation right now because it's like, obviously, like, I'm not like, hit them up, when's a fight, it's so quick after. Like I said, Rose deserves her time to kind of like chill a little bit after long camp. I know how that is for sure. But I think give it a couple days, and I'm sure the UFC knows what I want, and we've both made it vocal what we want. Rose wants to avenge her loss. Rose wants to get that win, and I'd love to get back in there as well. So I think they know what we want, and hopefully that conversation happens soon.